Welcome, everyone, to our formal meeting. I am so happy to share today is our first attempt to hold a hybrid meeting since over a year of precautions related to the pandemic and earthquake that required us to hold our council meetings virtually. We are considering our meeting today as sort of a dress rehearsal, with only the city council members and a handful of council staff on site. We wanted to make sure that there's a lot of technical issues and that we were perfecting those before we introduce having an actual hybrid meeting where we will have people being able to give comment online and also being here in attendance. I have to say it is so awesome to be back in the building and be with my city council colleagues and staff, and we really are looking forward to having the public join us here. And so, as I said, we really need to make sure we're working through those technical issues so that we can be successful in having that hybrid meeting. As always, we will continue to update with information as we know. The goal is to have a hybrid in-person / virtual meeting soon, and we will keep all of you updated as to what the plans are for that. We are also still abiding by CDC recommendations for encouraging mask wearing and social distancing, which is why you can see several of us are spread out a little bit. So we will continue to keep you, the public, informed on how we're ending up moving forward with this. We truly thank you for your patience and understanding as we look for the best ways to move forward to meeting in person again. With that, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a flag here, so I think we can stand.
And we're getting a new city flag.
Oh, great. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. Now I'll move on to everyone's favorite part of where I read all of the rules of decorum for our city council meetings. For the public comment opportunities we have today, we are accepting your comments through WebEx, and for those whose only option is to call in, staff will be monitoring a separate telephone line. Before we begin moving through our agenda, I want to mention and review our rules of decorum. These are guidelines that the City Council has always had in place to help our meeting progress in an orderly, civil, efficient way. These help us move through the agenda and give everyone the opportunity to voice their opinions without feeling intimidated. In order to achieve this, our rules of decorum begin from the moment you arrive into our virtual meeting. I want to stress that even though us as city council members are meeting here in person together, these rules of decorum still exist. And as you enter our virtual meeting, we would ask that you follow the rules of decorum that we've had in place since the beginning of city council meetings, but certainly over the last 18 months that we've been doing this virtually. The council respects all points of view, and we welcome new insights. While giving your comments, please be respectful. Avoid yelling, profanity, or making racial slurs, obscene, or defamatory remarks. We want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and safe in giving their opinion to the city council. That's the point of us being here and having these moments to hear from you. If you use profanity during your comment, your line will be muted. And if any comments reach a level of disrespect, I will ask that you be muted and you will forfeit your opportunity to address the council tonight. If you feel you need to use profanity to express your point, you're welcome to email council members or call our comment line. In addition, our staff will request for your name during the registration process. To limit disruption, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of decorum. If your registered name does not meet this requirement, then our staff will use the chat feature to gather the information from you. Taylor Hill from our staff is helping to moderate the meeting and will be messaging with attendees to coordinate. Please monitor the chat screen for information and/or feel free to message Taylor with any questions. As always, you can always send comments to the City Council. You can mail them to P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah 84114. You can email us at council.comments@slcgov.com, or you can call us at 801-535-7654. This brings us to agenda item number 4, where the council will approve the minutes of Tuesday. But first, I should read my script. But first, I would like to make a correction for the public record from the city recorder's office. We need to strike out work session meeting minutes for Tuesday, February 16th, 2021, and formal meeting minutes for February 2nd and February 16th, 2021, which we approved on June 15th. Therefore, the council will approve the work session meeting minutes of Tuesday, November 17th, 2020, Tuesday, December 8th, 2020, as well as the limited formal meeting minutes of Thursday, May 13th, 2021. I'll look for a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this? All those in favor, say aye.
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 So I have a question. I'm an aye, sorry. Because we're still hybrid, does Cindy Lou need me to roll call things, or are we good going back to just the general ayes and nays?
Okay.
Okay.
In general, though, she does have to record who voted which way, so if you say who, you can tell, so if you can still announce
Okay.
something.
Okay.
That's what she's looking for.
So the minutes were approved unanimously with James, Councilmember Rogers, not present today at this time. We will begin with our first hearing item. So we are now on to public hearings, by the way, and we will begin with our first hearing item. Isaac Canedo on our staff will be calling the names of those who wish to comment and unmuting lines. Again, once we open public comment, Isaac will announce 3 names at a time so that people can have some notice and be prepared. When it is your turn to speak, Isaac will say your name, unmute your line, and you may begin. Please state your name and the 2-minute timer will start. At the 2-minute mark, the host will announce time and your microphone will be muted. If you are unable to finish your comment, please refer to your chat screen and our staff will post our contact information. If you do not wish to speak, please message our staff to let them know, or when the host states your name, please let us know you are here to listen. Our first public hearing is regarding a resolution that would authorize the sale of airport revenue bond issued to continue to finance construction of the new Salt Lake City International Airport. Before we begin taking comments, I would first turn the time over to Russell Weeks with council staff to give a short introduction. Maybe. Do we have Russell?
Doesn't look like he's in the meeting, so maybe just go to,
The next public hearing?
or just go to the,
Oh, to the comments? We can do that. No, not a problem. Let's see, Isaac, do you want to start with our first public comment on this, please?
Yes, our first commenter will be George Chapman, and I don't have anybody else for this item.
And
George?
before George begins, it's a little difficult to hear, so I think that's a technical thing on our end, if maybe there's volume. Did anyone else notice that?
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Yes, that's much better.
Okay. Okay, I think it was just my microphone.
Okay,
All right,
great.
so I'll be unmuting George then. George, you are unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, we can, George.
Yeah. Okay, I understand the airport bonds issue, and obviously it has to go through, and I support the resolution, but it'd be really important, I think, for the council and the administration to, at the same time, emphasize it's important to speed up the central walkway transportation options, because right now, I don't know if it's done deliberately. I think Delta did it deliberately, but essentially Delta is getting a big push to use Delta instead of the other airlines, unless you want to walk a mile. So if you understand what I'm saying, the faster we can get the center tunnel transportation options implemented, the better it'll be for actually being fair to all airlines and not pushing people to fly Delta. I know friends that are saying, well, okay, I'll pay an extra 100 and fly Delta because I don't want to walk a mile. I'm just saying the council and the administration, at the same time they pass this, should make it clear the airport director should be quickly implementing the transportation options, even if it's just carts, more carts, but it's ridiculous to walk a mile because essentially it's shifting passengers to Delta. Those are my comments.
Council members, we have nobody else for this item.
Great. Thank you, Isaac. Council members, I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we close the public hearing and defer action to a later meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Ferris. Any discussion on this?
Dugan.
Oh,
I went in for
second
it,
by,
but Councilmember Dugan beat me to it.
okay. I have a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That is unanimous with Councilmember Rogers absent. This brings us to our second public hearing, and it is regarding an ordinance that would amend the zoning map for property at 860 and 868 East 3rd Avenue. Before we begin taking comments, I will turn the time over to Brian Fulmer, who will give a short introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a proposal to rezone the properties from neighborhood commercial and special development pattern residential district to residential mixed-use district. The applicant expressed a desire to build a multifamily development of for sale units on the site. This is my intro.
Thank you, Brian. Isaac, we can start with our first commenter.
Great. We will begin with Warren Hillel, and followed by Kevin Blalock and then Michael Harding. Warren, you are unmuted.
Great, thank you. Hopefully everybody can hear me, but hello and good evening, everybody. My name is Oren, and my partner Marcus and I, we are the applicants for this project and proposal. And we have a great design team, speaking next, Kevin Blaylock and also Brian from Blaylock and Partners. First, we'll keep this brief, but I just wanted to, first of all, thank the council members for the time tonight and the consideration. It's been great to work with the entire city, from the planning department staff, including John Anderson, Mayara, Nelson Caitlin, the Greater Avenues community and council, our dear friend Bob, the previous property owner, the Historic Commission, and then also City Council, Brian Fulmer. Thank you for all your help. And then, of course, Councilmember Wharton and your team for the time that you guys have given us to review over the last few months and consider everything and the feedback. So just wanted to say thank you to everyone, and we're excited to take the next steps in this process. And we continue to be open and available to hear any questions or feedback. So thank you again, everybody.
Now we will have Kevin Blaylock, followed by Michael Harding. Kevin, you are unmuted.
Good evening, council members. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm just here really to answer any questions or address any concerns that might come up from the public comment. As Oren indicated, he and his partner Marcus have retained Blaylock and Partners as the architect to assist them with this project. And it's a personal one to me as a 20-year resident of the Avenues. That they've approached this with a very responsible approach. So just happy to answer any questions anybody might have. Thanks.
Sorry, council members, 1 second. Michael, you are unmuted. Actually, I appear to be having some technical difficulties. Give me 1 second. Michael, you are unmuted.
Yes, I live a block away from what was Bobby's gas station. And my wife and I actually think it's a good idea to put in some residential housing there. We're also concerned the greenhouse that's right next to that. What is going to happen with that piece of property? Because that was part of the package that I believe Bobby sold.
We, the format for our formal meetings and public hearings is not that we would be able to answer questions, but we can certainly follow back up with you. If you put your email address or phone number in the chat, we can get your information and follow up with you. And I'm sure the other property owners may be able to answer some of those questions.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Council members, we have nobody else for this item.
Great. Thank you to everyone who commented this evening. And council members, I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Ferris. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously with Councilmember Rogers being absent. This brings us to our next agenda item, which is an ordinance that would amend the zoning of properties at approximately 850 and 870 East, 2100 South, and would amend the Sugar House Master Plan future land use map. Again, I will turn the time over to Brian Fulmer with the council staff for a brief intro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, this is a proposal to change the zoning for the properties and amend the Sugar House Master Plan future land use map. The current zoning is Corridor Commercial District, and the proposed zoning is the Sugar House Business District. The request's intent is to allow more flexibility to develop a future multifamily residential, office, or mixed-use development on the site. And that is all I have for an intro.
Thank you, Brian. Isaac, we can go to our first commenter, please.
Cool. We'll be beginning with We'll be beginning with Ann Charles, followed by George Chapman, and then Emily Allworth. Ann, you are unmuted.
Hi, I don't know if your chat has been working. I've been trying to message you and I wanted to speak on the last item. So I just had a concern on the previous item of the third thing on the agenda. Mark Isaac, who made the proposal, has a history of being against affordable housing. He said he had a big aversion to it in 2016, and he developed housing that was $1,800 a month for a 2-bedroom in 2016. So I don't know what that would look like now. In the current proposal, it looks like they will make an extra level of affordable housing. I don't think that is enough for the crisis we are in, and we will be in even further as people are moving into the city, and just as our population grows, we're going to need a lot more affordable housing. And that was all I wanted to say on item 3. For item 4, this current one, I just also had concerns about affordability. Looking at Altus Development Group, it looks like they have also a history of pretty unaffordable housing, and I just wanted to air that concern. Thank you.
Now we will have George Chapman, followed by Emily Allworth. 1 second. George, you are
Okay,
unmuted.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I hope that the CIP projects that are previously approved should have priority. You're running out of money because you're giving money to consultants instead of doing the projects. The most egregious one is Miller Park that was approved in 2016. The CIP is not going to happen because you spent all your money on a consultant. So the Miller Park CIP should be implemented with the extra funding you have. Also, the Seven Canyons CIP project was approved before. It was supposed to save the artwork, and now we're talking about a consultant saying, well, maybe we should grind it down. If this city really appreciates art and wants to support art, it should be saving the art. On number 8 and number 30 on rail-adjacent pavement improvements on 9th South, that'll require a lot more than $70,000. And I like the idea of starting a railroad crossing study, but pavement upgrades would help right now. And that's really, really important. Regarding number 26 on your list, all parks and trails need shade sails. We should be buying a bunch of the sails, not just 1 or 2, and every year saying, well, should we approve this or not? This should be part of the parks budget. So buy a bunch of sails. It makes more sense. The Fairmont Park also needs a playground between the playing fields. So again, more playground equipment, not onesie-twosie every year. This idea you're spending hours on CIP projects that parks should already say, we're going to do it. Okay, on number 58, 13 South camping resistant landscaping. You put it in on the King Center, but 13 South has a problem too. So why aren't you putting 13 South camping resistant landscaping as a approved priority? Please approve it. And the best traffic calming is steel plates, buy more and have them available so you don't have to do every year all the CIP requests for traffic calming.
George, that's
these are
time.
immediate, effective, and cost-effective.
I apologize. That was my bad. We now have Emily Allworth. Emily, you are unmuted.
Hi, I'm not quite sure what's going on with City Council tonight. I'm a little bit confused about what number we're on. I would really appreciate if that could be reiterated so I can know that I'm talking on the same issue. It seems like people are talking on different issues at different numbers. That would be really helpful for some clarification.
Sorry, Emily, we're currently on B3 Rezone Master Plan Amendment 850, 870 East, 2100 South.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I would like to say that I'm against this. The Opinion 8 consulting group has a history of not creating enough affordable housing. The owner has been quoted saying that he has a big aversion to affordable housing. He wants it to be market rate, which according to him is far more than I could make. He's saying that it is not inexpensive living. It's for people who don't want to live in a home, can't qualify for a mortgage. or young professionals who choose not to. As a young professional who cannot qualify for a mortgage, this housing is far too expensive, and frankly, unaffordable housing is all the housing that I could personally afford. So I think we need to way lower the bar on what affordable housing is. Affordable housing at this point is something that I could afford as someone who works full time. It's not actually affordable housing for most people working minimum wage, which, as we know, in Salt Lake City is less than $8 an hour, which is crazy. On top of that, this housing does not have a concrete plan for having a multiple affordable housing units, and therefore I oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Isaac, before we go on, I want to apologize for any confusion. Isaac is right. We are on public hearing number 3, which is the rezone and master plan amendment at 850 and 870 East, 2100 South. And so there was a little bit of confusion. I apologize for that. That's where we're at. So if the coming up speakers now know that we're on public hearing item number 3. Thank you, Isaac. We can continue.
I believe we have nobody else for this item.
Okay, I want to say thank you to everyone who commented tonight, and we will move. Oh, I need to look for a motion, please.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and defer the action to a future council meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Valdemoros. Is there any discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously with Councilmember Rogers being absent. This brings us to a pause. First. Okay, so we're having some internet issues, and so maybe those people that were trying to register and were having some troubles registering. So we are just going to take about a 2 to 3 minute break so we can figure out internet issues and make sure that everybody who wants to speak has the opportunity to speak. So quick break. Thanks, everyone. to everyone that is online watching and listening and waiting. We did have a little bit of some technical issues, which caused some people who wanted to speak on an item to not be able to speak on that item. So I am going to look for a motion to reopen the public hearing for agenda item B3.
Madam Chair, move that we reopen the public hearing for agenda item B3, which is the rezone and master plan amendment at 850 and 870 East, 2100 South.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Ferris. Any discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that passes unanimously with Councilmember Rogers being absent. So Isaac, we and the rest of the public that is listening and wanting to comment, we've reopened agenda item B3. This is the amendment, rezone and amendment for 850 and 870 East, 2100 South over in Sugar House. So if you're interested in commenting on that, if you've already commented on that, please don't repeat yourself. If you have not commented and wish to, now is that chance. So I will turn it over to Isaac. Thank you.
Okay, so we will begin with Mark Isaac, followed by George Chapman. Mark, give me one. Mark, you are unmuted.
I was trying to unmute. I was stuck, Isaac, for a bit.
Oh, you're fine.
Fantastic. Council.
Mark, you need to speak up. Sorry to interrupt, but we can barely hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
There you go. That's better.
It's been an eventful 24 hours there, Councilman Fowler. Thank you all for hearing this agenda item tonight on the rezone and the master plan request for the Dryer Snellgrove site. We have worked very closely with the community council, with the land use committee over the last year or so on this request. The community has showed tremendous support for our application. The beautiful thing about this rezone is expanding the Sugar House Central Business District design guidelines further into the community. It requires us to have the 15-foot step back on our street frontages at the 30 feet of height. It requires far more engagement of glazing, glass, retail, community, pedestrian connectivity. So most of the performance criteria we are required to accommodate or to provide by the Sugar House Central Business District 2 expansion allows for us to continue with the good work and the really successful design and implementation that I think the city staff has worked on for 20 or 25 years in that Sugar House area. If I'm not mistaken, that design guideline work was established 20 years ago, and we'd love to take it one block further west. We think it lends itself to a better built environment, and it will continue to sort of expand that Sugar House Central Business District. Do you have any questions of me?
Time.
Now we will have George Chapman speak to this. George, you are unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, George, we can hear you.
Okay. Mark Isaac is one of the good guys. I don't always agree with him, but I think he's been a fantastic proponent of projects and making sure that the community councils are actually very involved in it. He makes sure developers are actually working with the community council. So I'll give Mark credit on that. But on this project, this is one of the best projects you will ever see in Salt Lake City because it's mixed income, mixed use. This is your dream, council, administration. This is your dream. You've been dreaming of this. You thought you'd have to pay developers to do mixed income, mixed use, ground floor retail. You even thought about giving them impact fee rebates. Remember? This is only the second building in Sugar House to allow to offer affordable housing. First was Cowboy Partners, Liberty Village, but this is a second. In 10 years, it's only the second with affordable housing. So you should be jumping up and down saying, yes, 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 and approving it. Don't wait until next week. Don't wait till the next session. Approve it now. Give the message to developers you are pushing for mixed income, mixed use. And yes, the community council does support it. Most people do support it. It has enough parking not to overwhelm the adjacent neighborhood, and it actually is your dream. So send a message to developers, approve the project, and all developers out there, Mark Isaac is one of the best advocates for responsible development in Salt Lake City. Thank you, Mark. Those are my comments.
Council members, we have nobody else on this item.
Thank you, Isaac, and thank you to everybody who commented on this. Before we move to the next public hearing, we need, we're going to take just a quick announcement from our Executive Director, Cindy Gus Jensen, regarding the airport bond.
Yes, one of the matters that we had a little bit of confusion on was the airport revenue bonds hearing, Series 2021A and 2021B. The motion was to close the hearing and defer action. We don't need to redo that, but just to clarify, the only action the council needed to do tonight was to close the hearing. There is not a need to defer action. So the council has completed everything that's necessary to move that item forward. So the airport just asked that we confirm that publicly so that it's on the record. Okay, so we just added an extra word and it didn't matter.
We politicians, we tend to do that. Just kidding. Thanks, Cindy, for that update. We are now on our next public hearing, which is B4. This is an ordinance that would amend the zoning map for a parcel of property at 810 East, 800 South, and would amend the central community future land use map from low-density residential to community commercial. And before we take any public comment, I will again turn the time over to Brian Fulmer for a brief introduction. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I make my introduction, does the council need to close the 2100 South public hearing again?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Brian. Always keeping me on my toes. Council members, I would look for a motion to for our B3 agenda item.
Madam Chair, I move to close the public hearing and defer action to a later date.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously with Councilmember Rogers being absent. Thank you, Brian, for reminding me, and we will move on to agenda item B4.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a proposal to amend the zoning map from single and two-family residential to community business district and amend the central community future land use map from low-density residential to community commercial for the properties at 810 East, 800 South. The applicant submitted preliminary plans for a two-story building with commercial space on the ground floor and residential units on the second floor with parking in the rear. And that is my introduction.
Isaac, we can start with our first commenters.
Great. We'll begin with Cindy Cromer, followed by Ann Charles, and then Philip Winston. Cindy, give me 1 second. Cindy Cromer, you are unmuted.
Oh, hi, everybody. My name is Cindy Cromer. I've followed the fate of this parcel since at least 1987. It's a very sad story ever since the expansion of the Smith's grocery store. I'm opposed to the rezoning and master plan amendment for 3 reasons. The first is that the support is based on a specific proposal, not the characteristics of the zone, by the applicant, and that proposal is satisfactory to the neighbors. But the CB zone does not require that that proposal be implemented, The only way to do that would be through a development agreement. My second reason for opposition is that the rezoning of 9th and 9th to accommodate the Smiths expansion in the late 80s was one of the city's worst land use decisions in the last 40 years. Even with the application of the CB zone in 1995, Smiths remains non-conforming. We have asphalt instead of the housing that used to be there. I do not want to see the city enlarge the mistake that it made for Smith's expansion. Number 3, we have other recently adopted zones which would be a better fit, such as the RMU 35. The property owner has developed other properties in the CB zone and he wants to stick with the zone that he knows and understands. And all of this leads me to a broader request to you. We have numerous outdated zones in the ordinance. I call them bad zones. You have approved new zones, but the bad ones are still on the books. And developers have a right to request them as long as the bad zones are in the ordinance. So you need to signal the development community that you want to see projects under the newer zones. In this case, you could signal that the developer needs to use the RMU 35, or you could enter into a development agreement about this particular proposal to ensure that the neighbors get the infill project that they have already seen. Thank you very much.
Now we will have Ann Charles, followed by Philip Winston. Ann, you are unmuted.
I just wanted to first say, like, I'm very impressed with Cindy's research. I think she clearly knows a lot about this space and a lot about this land and has put a lot of effort into that research. I would really appreciate personally, as someone who doesn't understand all these zoning changes, to have really simple language in the amendments when you're proposing them, because a lot of it goes over my head and I'm sure it goes over other people's heads, because I really had a hard time understanding what all of this meant. A concern that I just did want to raise. It to me seems like a conflict of interest. This past donation period, the owner of Altus Development Group, which is this group, and his wife both donated over $700 to Darren Mono's his election campaign, and so I think that that should be disclosed to the public when we are proposing changes or allowing people to further develop land, that we disclose any sort of conflicts of interest that could be present there. That's all.
Great. Now we will go on to Philip Winston. If you give me 1 second. You are unmuted.
Thank you so much. Council members, I appreciate your time in looking at this matter. I have spent several hours on the phone with Cindy Cromer. I believe that she's a person in the community that attempts and does a great job in harboring great outcomes for properties. We looked at the other zones that were available, and this is a very small piece of property, and the setback requirements were very restrictive. And so we'd be coming to the council for not only a rezone, but also a change and a variance request for fitting a building on this piece of property. I do, as a individual, donate to campaigns of people on the council, because I think that they're strong candidates for their positions and want to see these people who are advocates for our community and our city remain in their positions. This is a great project. This lot has been empty, just like Cindy Cromer said, since 1989, I believe, and has been vacant. We've had to fence it. It's been graffitied. It's a place generally where was a dog park for a while. We've reached out to all community members in the community and have their support behind this. And we intend to build a beautiful building there with the council's approval. This needs to happen. There is community business next door, and community business is the largest zone in the area. Thank you so much.
Council members, we don't have anybody else for this item.
Great, thank you to everyone who commented this evening. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Mono. Any discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously with Councilmember Rogers being absent. This brings us to public hearing item B5. This is a resolution for project funding allocations in the Capital Improvement Program, which involves the construction, purchase, or renovation of buildings, parks, streets, or other physical structures. This is generally known, as many of you heard us talk about, CIP projects. So before we turn this over to comments, I will ask our council staff, Ben Ludke, to join us and give us a brief introduction.
CIP is an open and competitive process for residents, local organizations, and city departments to submit applications for funding that improves physical city assets like buildings, parks, and streets. This year, CIP has 75 projects requesting over $60 million in funding. This is nearly double the total CIP budget. The council is scheduled to continue CIP discussions on July 20th, and the budget must be adopted by September 1st. The budget staff report, the updated funding log, the mayor's recommendations, and all of the supporting documents are in today's packet. And there's also a quick link on the council's homepage with all of the CIP information. It's available at slc.gov/council.
Thank you, Ben. And maybe we could ask Taylor or Isaac to put that link in the chat for us during this discussion. With that, Isaac, we can turn to our comments.
Yes, we will begin with Eduardo Moreno de la Paz, followed by Sarah Wolseley, and then Melanie Person. Eduardo, you are unmuted.
Hi, I'm 17 years old, and I now play tennis and work at the Salt Lake City's managed tennis centers. And I live at the edge of West Valley City near Magna and take an hour bus ride to the park to work and play tennis. And for years, Coach Mike's Friends and Public Tennis Foundation has reached out to high school players in need of training and equipment that can't afford it. For example, me, I couldn't do it when I first started playing tennis, and they helped me out a lot throughout the years, providing me equipment and sometimes money for the bus. And they've just been really great with that. And they even now given me a part-time job there, helping out with teaching the little kids. I've developed lifelong skills and friends throughout the years and gotten really good at it, and started thinking more about the life choices and how this might be a future for me. And I want to see more kids have the same opportunity to maybe have a chance at thinking, hey, this is what I want to do. And I just want you guys to consider amending the budget and supporting capital improvements for the tennis centers. And yeah, that's everything. Thank you for your time.
Now we will be moving on to Melanie Person, followed by Brett Markham, while we try to reach Sarah. Melanie, if you give me 1 second. Melanie, you are unmuted.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I just want to put in a word for a CIP project that I submitted with the help of Kevin Young from the Community and Neighborhoods Department, who was reviewing the transportation-related CIPs. I'm a resident that lives very near 700 South and 10th West, and the goal is to update the road to reconfigure it so that it fits into the standards that I hope we would have for our West Side community, targeting anything from beautification to road condition improvement to slowing car traffic, making the roads safe for bicyclists, drivers, and pedestrians. I'd just like to mention that it fits into several master plans, West Side master plan, specifically bolstering the nodes idea, the 9-line community reinvestment area that will be coming up, and the possible up and coming livable streets plan. I'd also like to advocate for just more targeted CIP investment in the West Side community in general, recognizing that there are many assets that exist already in place, specifically the Glendale Water Parks site, and replacing Poplar Grove tennis courts with something that could have a little more utilization, like maybe newer courts or converting to the pickleball courts with lighting. I just want to say I appreciate the support from the city that I've received as I've been watched through this project. Thank you.
Sarah is back, so we will be going back to Sarah Woolsey, followed by Brett Markham, and then Ann Charles. Sarah, you are unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello,
Sorry,
Sarah Woolsey.
Sorry, Sarah. It seems you muted again on accident. You're unmuted now.
Okay, hey, this is Sarah Woolsey. I am just calling. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I was part of the Sugar House Safe Side Streets application. We have not yet been prioritized. We think we are a valuable project. We are a multi-block, multi-street initiative to look at traffic calming in the Sugar House area. I personally live 1 block south of 21st South, and we have had challenges with traffic cutting through on our streets. And we know that any traffic calming that's done on our street, any changes we would make would affect our neighbors. So we have engaged a 4-block north and from 900 to 1100, engaged neighbors to talk about compatible traffic calming and looking at what would work for all of us. So the proposal that we developed is expensive, the Safe Side Streets project, but it includes study. So we do not implement things that may not actually have the effects that we'd like. And we feel like we're kind of a pre-pilot to the Livable Streets project. So we'd like to be considered as a project in the capital improvement budget this year, so we can test out neighbors working together, a little broader implications of traffic calming across multiple streets. And we have a really engaged group, and we'd love to participate with the city. So please consider funding our project, and I thank you for taking my comments.
Sarah, before you hang up, sorry, are you still there, Sarah?
I think she is gone.
Okay.
I was trying to unmute her, but never mind. She's here.
Sarah, hi, it's Councilmember Fowler. You were a bit quiet in the beginning when you were mentioning which project it was that you were advocating for. Is it the Sugar House Safe Side Streets?
Yes, I
Okay.
think it's line 77. Yes, thank you.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thanks, Sarah.
I appreciate you clarifying that.
All right, my apologies for that. That was my bad. Next, we have Brett Markham, followed by Ann Charles, and then Kim Shireen. Brett, you are unmuted.
Did they call your name, Brett? I heard it.
Really? I'm sorry, is this Brett?
Brett, that's you. I think you're on. Yes.
Hello. I've got a little bit of feedback here, but I'm just wondering if I'm being heard.
We can hear you.
So anyways, my name is Brett Markham. I'm a resident at 1351 Green Street, and I'm here at the meeting today because we've got a community garden that's being proposed, the Harrison Community Garden on the corner of Harrison and 7th East. And so I just wanted to speak and encourage the council, to consider this request and consider CIP funding. I've been a homeowner here for 24 years. When I first moved here, I thought it was quite nice to have this large strip of grass behind my home. It kind of was a nice buffer between my home and 7th East. But over the years, I've just kind of lamented the fact that it seems that this large strip of grass could be put to better use. There was a time when really what I wanted to do is I wanted to extend my fence line. I started speaking with UDOT. I actually first approached Salt Lake City Corps, thinking that Salt Lake City owned the land, being as they said that Salt Lake City sent their mow crews and the Parks Department maintained it. And I found out that the land was actually owned by UDOT. So I started to pursue with UDOT the possibility of being able to buy or lease the land, and kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole of bureaucracy. Eventually, I've kind of come to realize that I really don't want to extend my fence line because I don't really want to have more grass to mow, and I think that the land could be put to better use. In the last few years, I kind of ramped up efforts because the strip behind my home was starting to take on a new use, which was there started to become a lot of homeless camping that was going on. There was homeless camping and some drug activity and other criminal activity that went along with it. I reached out to Salt Lake City. I was making calls to the police department. Finally, in speaking.
Time? Oh, you got it.
Next, we have Ann Charles, followed by Kim Shireen, and then Emily Allworth. Ann, you are unmuted.
Thanks. I'm still going through all the items, but a few things that I do support is expansion of different pickleball courts. I have found that to be a really great activity. And the Tracy Aviary investments. I think they do really good work with conservation, so I support giving them more money, as well as Odyssey House. I personally work for them, and I know it would really help us in making sure we're able to maintain quality living standards for all of our residents. I also saw a few things about the Three Creeks Park, which I think is the newest one, and I really support investment there. I recently went there, and I think it's a really good start. And I think that, just more seating and more available space for people to really spend time is a great idea, especially in that location. And then one idea is that community garden that's on 7th. I love the idea of community gardens. I think we can look at expanding where we are putting our community gardens, because there's one I know just down the road. There's several in this area, and I think it's really awesome. And I also think there's a lot of inequity in how we're placing these, and a lot of inequity in often costs. So making sure that it is available for people who would want to participate, who may not have the funds that often come with different fees, and making sure we're putting it in areas where they don't necessarily have access to that. I know there's a lot of gardening opportunities right here in East Liberty Park, and I think we can look at expanding that. Thanks.
Now we have Kim Shireen, followed by Emily Allworth, and then Eric McGill. Sorry, Eric McGill is not here. Then Kaylee Maurer. Kim, you are unmuted.
Yes, I was just joining the meeting because I'd like to say that I am definitely in favor of the proposal for the West Side 10th West 700 South traffic calming. And I just wanted to make it clear that we've lived in the area 27 years. And on that particular street, we over the years have almost been killed many, many times from the traffic coming off the side streets, ignoring the stop signs coming on to 700 South in that particular area. And we have other neighbors that have expressed the same problems. So I am definitely in favor of that project going through. Thank you.
Now we have Emily Allworth, followed by Kaylee Maurer, and then Jim Webster. Emily, you are unmuted.
Hi, I would like to speak to a few projects I would like prioritized. I'm in support of the Stream Bay. It needs to be replaced, and that is going to potentially help us with stormwater pollution in the future. This is something that needs to be done in order to prevent stormwater being polluted, which is something we really need to think about with the drought that's currently going on. I also believe that all of the camping resistant landscaping needs to be heavily reconsidered. I do not agree that $100,000 from the general fund should be used for camping resistant landscaping. This idea of using rockscapes as a way of preventing camping and loitering is not only just really violent architecture that not only prevents unsheltered people from just spending time in the city that they live in, but also it makes it less hospitable for people in the area and kids who want to play. I am for xeriscaping. However, rockscapes are actually shown to create higher areas of urban heat and end up making our cities hotter and don't actually help. I think if we already have something that's there, I would want it to be replaced with xeriscape. However, rockscapes are not a solution. I also believe that the some of the redesigns involved in the Donner and Rotary Glen Park Community Park irrigation and landscape design and construction 67 should be prioritized. I really appreciate some of these design implements that would be isolated irrigation zones that would help lower the effect of drought and the upcoming climate change effects on our cities. I think these parks are really important to prioritize, and I think that using our general funds and public land projects in order to prioritize low water plants that make sense, and making sure that the trees that we have are watered correctly so that they are able to withstand windstorms.
Now we have Kaylee Maurer, followed by Jim Webster, and then Taylor Anderson. Kaylee, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes,
we can hear you.
Excellent. My name is Callie Maurer. I'm calling on behalf of Odyssey House and the CIP application we put forward to you guys. Again, we're super grateful for the $300,000 that was recommended. However, I'm just jumping on this public hearing to tell you guys that the damage to this building is beyond the $300,000 mark, and just really asking for that full funding for that project. I received an email from Dan Rip asking me to speak to our current program Occupancy, especially given the pandemic, and our demand has not been higher. Just this last week, we admitted 75 people into our program, which is an all-time high. And so I think that we're seeing a trend of people kind of coming out and seeking more services, given the issues that we've had with the courts and all of the other typical referral flows that we've had from our program. Additionally, we have a lot of people who have become homeless in the population. We're seeing a much higher addiction rate, a much higher usage rate than ever before. And so I couldn't tell you that these services are needed anymore. Like, it's very important that we provide these right now. And this building is a really important piece of it. So at any given time, we have about 40 people in there. It's single dads with their children. That's one of the only programs on the West Coast in America. And also an adult overflow housing. And so and that turns over about every 3 months. So it serves about 160 people per year. We have leased the building for 25 years, so that means that we've served about 4,000 people out of that facility alone. And this is full residential treatment to these families and single adults. Again, the masonry has crumbled so much that we can't even change out the fire doors that we need to, and we're taking that on at our cost. So
Now we have Jim Webster, followed by Taylor Anderson. Jim, you are unmuted.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm a resident of Salt Lake City for about 45 years, living on Miller Park. I'm a former chair of Yale Crest, and I've had experience with CIP funding in 2 occasions. One was the realignment of Military and 1700 East. I've designed race courses in the past. I'm a landscape architect, and that went on without a hitch. There were no consultants involved in that other than myself, and I was a volunteer. I worked directly with Salt Lake City Engineering, and we accomplished that for under $100,000, which in today's dollars would probably be around 250, 300 possibly. If there were a consultant involved, I'm sure it would have exceeded maybe 400. In contrast, I'm the applicant for a $425,000 CIP grant for Miller Bird Refuge and Nature Park. And in contrast, I've never been contacted by the city as the applicant, other than when I've initiated that conversation myself. Lisa, you may remember that on 2 or 3 occasions in your office. Unfortunately, the 3 components of that application seem to have been dismissed to some extent. It was announced in February that the city had already spent $145,000 on a consultant, and that the ADA component of that project would be abandoned or put on a future docket for additional funding. The restoration and reinforcement of the WPA historic wall apparently is still there, but the primary reason for that application among the Yale Crest community was to reinstate the lower pathway down by the creek. And it's my understanding that that's being abandoned. We currently have pathways, some of which are on private property and violate all kinds of codes and so forth. Initially, there was a golf course irrigation system that the city tore out subsequent to the oil spill. And there's just a lot of damage down there. The city has violated.
Now we have Taylor Anderson. You are unmuted.
Hey there, thanks for the time. My name is Taylor Anderson. I live in Liberty Wells. I'm calling in tonight. I wasn't planning on it, but I know the lead applicant for the Kensington Neighborhood Byway is out of cell range right now, and I know she would have been here tonight to speak on behalf of that proposal. So thank you for recommending it. I just wanted to point out the reason that we were calling in is I noticed in the staff report there was a note that said this was not recommended by the CIP board, and the mayor, it was the only project the mayor then reversed and recommended to fund. I think the reason the mayor did that, and we applaud her for it, we thank her for it, was that the CIP board didn't appear to know that this is matching funding, and even partial funding would have fully funded the neighborhood byway on Kensington Avenue. So anyways, happy to hear all these people looking to create safer streets in town. I hope that we have the budget and this transportation staff to actually implement the Livable Streets program. But in the meantime, these individual projects like Kensington and the others mentioned tonight are great ways of getting us down the line. So thank you for your support of that project, and thanks for the time tonight.
Council members, we have nobody else here for B5.
Great. Thank you to everyone who commented this evening. As mentioned earlier, we will have another public hearing on CIP applications next week, I believe. And with that, I will look for a motion, actually.
Madam Chair, I move the council continue the public hearing to August 17th.
Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Valdemoros. Any discussion on this? Great.
May I, before you vote, may I explain?
Yes.
Okay. Continuing the hearing means that the people who have spoken tonight cannot speak again on the same topic. If you close this hearing and set another hearing, then that means you are able to hear from them twice. With the number of things that exist to comment on, you may want to go ahead and continue it and not close it. But I just wanted to be clear that you can't hear them again on the same topics.
Does that change your motion at all,
No,
Councilmember
to just
Dugan?
continue the public hearing.
To continue the public hearing, does that change your second at all, Councilmember Valdemoros? Any discussion on this?
Thank you.
I'd actually prefer to close it and have a second public hearing.
And you can vote no.
Okay.
Any other discussion on this?
There will be a second public hearing.
Yeah.
There will be a second half if we continue this.
Right, second half, just the people that just spoke can't speak again.
But then
They can speak again, just not on the same item that they spoke on
Is that true?
today.
But
Yes.
Okay, so they can speak again, but on different projects.
On different projects.
Okay.
So 2 hearings gives people more time to speak about a wider variety of issues. It doesn't allow for repeating the topics by the same people.
Okay, but they could speak about a different project.
Absolutely.
Again. Okay, understood. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously with Councilmember Rogers not here. This brings us to agenda item number C, letter C. Sorry, that was the last of our public hearings. I didn't realize that until I turned the page. So we're on to potential action items. We don't have any today. This brings us to questions to the mayor from the city council. And I actually think Rachel and or Lisa is here.
Madam Chair, number
Yes.
6. Number 6.
Did I skip one? Oh. Seriously, you'd think I'd never conducted a meeting before. So we are going to agenda item C6, which is amendments to the Salt Lake City Consolidated Fee Schedule. This is a public hearing. I will first turn the time over to Jen Bruno to give us a brief introduction before we move on to comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a follow-up to the council's budget discussions in May and June and sets the schedule of fees for the city for the year. The reason this didn't happen on the usual schedule is because we had an incorrect version of the consolidated fee schedule during the June deliberations. So out of an abundance of caution, we listed it again with the correct version this time. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen, for that update. And Isaac, we will start with public comments now.
Thank you, Council Chair. We don't have anybody signed up for comments on this item.
Okay, I'll look for a motion.
Second.
I think, will you repeat that with your mic on?
I muted myself in private. I move that the council close the public hearing and adopt an ordinance setting the consolidated fee schedule for fiscal year 21-22.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Valdemoros. Any discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously with Councilmember Rogers absent. Now we're going to move to the part C of our agenda, potential action items. We don't have any. Agenda D are comments. Again, I'm looking towards this screen and I think, oh, there's Lisa. Lisa Schaefer is here on behalf of the mayor. Thank you, Lisa, for being here. Council members, do you have any questions or comments for the mayor's office? I don't see any. So thank you for being here and hopefully we'll see you in person soon.
Thank you, Council Chair. Thank you, Council.
This brings us to comments to the City Council. The general comment portion of our agenda are for comments about general topics and not for items that were scheduled for a hearing today. So if you have spoken on an item that was in our agenda for a public hearing, you have spoken on that item, and this part of our agenda is for other topics and general comments to the City Council. Again, we are accepting comments through WebEx, as we've been doing, maybe with some hiccups, but we're doing it and working through those hiccups. For those that can only call in, staff is monitoring a separate phone line. Taylor Hill will be working with and messaging attendees to coordinate, and Isaac Canado, will be calling the names of those who wish to comment. As a reminder, our rules of decorum are still in place. Please be respectful to others that are listening, to us, to our staff, as you give our comments. We do value the comments of the public. We are here to listen to them. But if there is profanity or disrespect to a level that I feel inappropriate, we will have you muted, and you will forfeit the opportunity to speak with us today. So we also again ask that you give your name for the registration process and work with our staff if there's some problem getting that done. So with that, we want to thank—
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I just got a text message from somebody that was trying to speak on the CIP applications. Should I just direct them to come back at the next meeting?
They can, because of this, even though it was on the agenda, but they haven't spoken yet, then they can speak to the CIP at the right now, during general comments.
Okay, so they should speak now.
Yeah.
Okay. I think so.
Okay. With that, if there's other issues, Darren, just let us know. We'll work through that. We will turn the time over to Isaac for general comments. Thank you, Isaac.
Thank you, Council Chair. Just for clarification, who will be speaking to the CIP item?
Rebecca Huber, I believe.
Okay, 1 second.
Or moved over.
Rebecca, you are unmuted.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Huber. Thank you so much for hearing my comment. Sorry, I got registered in the wrong place. I just want to ask the council to consider supporting and funding the Harrison Community Garden Project. It is something that I lived in Liberty Wells Community Council, or Liberty Wells area, about a block away from, and I think it's such a important project. I've been a community gardener at another garden in Liberty Wells, and I think it offers a food source for the community, and it offers a benefits. One of the benefits of this location is that the city does not have to pay to maintain that land. As well as one of the missions of Wasatch Community Gardens is to make sure that everyone in the community is offered a place to grow fresh food, and it is something that is scarce in this community. We have kind of a food desert going on, and we have outreach to 800 people who support the garden in the community, and we have over 150 people who would like to have a plot there to grow fresh food. So I think it's so important. I think that there's some really important things that have been brought up as far as equity, but I know that there's a lot of people in need, especially within this area, who would definitely like to be part of this community garden. And I think it would be so important. It's been really important in my life as a community gardener. And I really appreciate you considering this request, as well as the availability of people to grow fresh food and have that. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, now we will have Brian Moint. I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to say the last name, Moint, followed by Madeline Becky, and then Allison Pietro. Brian, you are unmuted.
Thank you. My last name is pronounced Minch, and that's okay. Nobody ever gets it right. I represent Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment. For the last several weeks, every conscious resident of the Salt Lake Valley can see, smell, and inhale the consequences of a country and a state that continues to do pretty much what we've always done, regardless of the outcome. Despite suffocating heat, unbreathable air, massive wildfires, more expensive food, disappearing reservoirs, and snowpack, our state leaders have refused to learn from their mistakes. While Salt Lake City suffers a ripple effect of what is rapidly becoming a global climate disaster, in Utah, public policy, especially the inland port, is only making it all worse, pouring gasoline on that fire almost literally. Now the Salt Lake City Mosquito Abatement District has picked up the baton, continuing to do what they have always done for years, regardless of the outcome, refusing to learn from past mistakes. And now, in service to the inland port and the prison, they want to do even more of it, i.e. spray a mist of potent toxic pesticides from airplanes over the Salt Lake Valley. Despite all the research that shows these pesticides are harmful to human health, proven to be neurotoxic and damage brain development in children at very small doses, shown to increase the risk of autism, and Utah has one of the highest rates in the country, despite all the evidence that pesticides don't decrease the rates of West Nile virus infections, don't decrease the population of mosquitoes for more than a few days, and long-term promote mosquito resistance that makes the problem steadily worse, leading to a chemical arms race. Despite all this, SlickMed wants to raise property taxes to continue doing something they should have stopped doing decades ago. SlickMed should stop spraying pesticides. They would spend far less money learning how Boulder City, Colorado, and Madison, Wisconsin, for example, control mosquitoes without these toxic chemicals. So my question to the council is, will you be willing to deny SlickMed their increase?
Now we have Madeline, followed by Allison, and then William Huff. Madeline, you are unmuted. I apologize if I said your name wrong.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Madeline Becky, and I am going to be speaking this evening on behalf of the CIP funding for the community garden in the Liberty Wells community. I'm a longtime resident of the Liberty Wells community, and when I learned about the proposal for the garden to take an unused plot of land on 700 East and Harrison Avenue, I was all for it. Community gardens provide a multitude of benefits. They enhance the beauty of existing land. They garner a sense of community and strengthen community ties through inclusion and collaboration. And they allow people to connect with nature, attracting pollinators that help sustain our ecosystems. And at a moderate cost for a plot, they provide space for people to grow and share healthy organic food, not only with one another, but others in the community who are in need. As we all know, food scarcity is a reality for many people. According to Feeding America, here in Utah, there are 355,000 plus people who are facing hunger every day, and 113,000 plus are children. As urban farmers, we can make a small difference in those numbers. Not only do we have an opportunity to beautify a small space in a neighborhood, we have an opportunity to help others. I'd like to say thank you to the council this evening for considering our proposal. I think this is a win-win situation for growing and eating healthier food and making it available to others. And when we all stop and think about it, there's a little bit of an urban gardener in all of us. So I appreciate your time this evening, and I will go ahead and turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Now we have Allison, followed by William Huff, and then Polly Hart. Allison, you are unmuted.
Thank you so much, Council. I really appreciate speaking to you tonight. I am also speaking to you on the CIP funding, the Wasatch Community Gardens project on Harrison Avenue. I have been doing outreach for this program, and I can't tell you the number of people that are so excited and thrilled for another community garden to be in this area, because Wasatch Community Gardens are at capacity right now at the plots that they have available throughout the city. We need as many gardens as we can get to feed our people. We need organic, fresh vegetables. We need our community to be working together in unison and supporting one another. So can't tell you how excited everyone was when we were proposing this garden. And I've spoken to the senior centers. I gave the information to the libraries. I've been out at the farmers market, and normally people shun away when you want to talk to them about something, but everyone was, wow, we love Wasatch Community Gardens and we would love to see another one, especially in that area because that land is not being utilized. So as a person who lives right next door to the proposed site, I would really appreciate the opportunity to be growing organic, fresh vegetables and to be outdoors with other people in my community, supporting one another and supporting healthy habits. Thank you so much, Council, for this time. And Wasatch Community Gardens, let's root Harrison.
Now we have William Huff, followed by Polly Hart, and then Melinda waiting. William, you are unmuted.
Hi, I've been a community gardener with Wasatch Community Gardens at the Liberty Wells location for about 5 years. And I just wanted to express my support for the proposed garden on Harrison. It's basically taking a patch of dirt and turning it into a community. It's not just a community of gardeners, but invites people from the New Roots program, refugees, to allow them to grow food. And it's just been great what Wasatch Community Gardens has done with all their education programs. And, I've just learned so much from being part of this community garden that I think it would be a great asset to the community. Thank you.
Now we will have Polly, followed by Melinda, and then Ann Charles. Polly, you are unmuted.
Evening, my name is Polly Hart, and I am the Vice Chair of the Peanut Board. I'm here tonight to give you some personal insight on the Parks and Public Lands Department. I urge each and every one of you to listen to the entire recording of the July 8th Peanut Board meeting. It is gobsmacking, and that might actually be an understatement. We had a discussion about the history and the role of the Peanut Board. Kristen Riker informed us that our role is to be the eyes and ears of the constituents in our respective districts, period. We are occasionally asked to vote to recommend projects, but it's never clear to whom we are making the recommendation. This is all we do. To be clear, the ordinance that governs our board gives us many duties. One is to, quote, review, rank, prioritize, and make recommendations on CIP funding applications and construction designs pertaining to PPL programs, end quote. In my 4 years on the board, I have never seen a single CIP application, nor have I seen a construction drawing. The list of our unactualized duties goes on and on and on, but I hope you get the drift from that one example. Our board has been neutered and hogtied to the point where it exists in a state that bears no resemblance to its codified description. From my personal perspective, staff peats the peanut like outsiders, actually suggesting on several occasions that if we wanted to advise the mayor and council on something, that we should write personal letters, and I quote, just like the rest of the public. We are pitted against one another, eerily similarly to the users of their trails. I am begging for your help. I should not be treated as the enemy for demanding accountability from staff, but I am. In my opinion, the way the Peanut Board is treated is an embarrassment, and I am asking for an intervention. Thank you.
Now we have Melinda, followed by Ann, and then Lee Stano. Melinda, you are unmuted.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
My name is Melinda McElwain. I live in Salt Lake. I'm going to start with a quote from Tana Rohr, who wrote a letter to the Trib dated July 2nd. Quote, there's been no environmental study, no traffic study, no light pollution study, air pollution, water pollution, natural resource depletion, sustainability, or global warming studies. And I would add to that, no mosquito abatement study. Obviously, I'm talking about the inland port. The business plan offered by the Port Authority was 5 pages for 150 million square feet of industrial complex. Now the port has been given 40 million in taxpayer money. For what? Will they use it for any of these studies? Will they finance a public health risk assessment? We, the public, have asked for these things and have questioned all kinds of things, continually being stonewalled. These are questions the city of Salt Lake should be asking on our behalf. Bigger, faster, and cheaper, to take words out of Jack Hedges' playbook, cannot continue to be the goal in light of climate change, drought, the health of our airshed, and the disturbance of a major continental migratory bird pathway. How much water will an industrial park of this size use? Have you heard about Hanover and Oakley? They instituted building moratoriums because of anticipated water shortages. What are Salt Lake City's plans? With our shrinking Great Lake having a direct impact on our shrinking snowpack, where is the water for this project going to come from? What actions and demands is Salt Lake City going to make to assure that we, the citizens, are not suffering from this project that is going to make our valley unlivable? Thank you.
Now we have Ann Charles, followed by Lee Sano, and then Emily Allworth. And you are unmuted.
Thanks. First, I'd just like to say I'm a big fan of the hybrid model moving forward. I think it makes it a lot easier for people to participate and join. So I would really encourage you guys to extend it. I know you were troubleshooting today, but even right now it seems to be going better than it was in the start. So keep doing that. I wanted to also echo what the woman before me was speaking on, and also the physician who first spoke in the general comment about just the dangers of spraying massive amounts of pesticides over our valley for mosquito abatement. It's incredibly dangerous. There aren't studies on how this is going to affect not only humans, but also all the other animals that are in the area. And to do it for the inland port, which also has no studies done, is highly concerning. So whatever is moving forward with that, I would really encourage you not to approve it. And then lastly, I just wanted to speak to my disappointment on the recent 30% pay raise for SLC PD officers. The Salt Lake Tribune and KUER just released an article about 39 Utah officers who have had multiple shootings. And I think 17 of those were from Salt Lake City. That is an issue. We should not be giving pay raises to a group of people who are killing our own residents, killing our community members. It's really discouraging to see that. And we need to be investing better in our community in a genuine way. Giving more and more money to this police department is not a way of investing in our community members. And to have this pay raise directly after you already approved a budget increase, I think is really disingenuous. Also, you just increased the budget and now you're continually giving them more money. That's really confusing to your constituency to see a budget improved one meeting and then in the next increasing that budget even more. I think you should be a lot more transparent, and you should have done that before if that was what you wanted to.
Now we have Lee, followed by Emily Allworth, and then Jim Webster. Lee, you are unmuted.
Thank you. My name's Lee Stanhope. I'm a voting citizen of Salt Lake.
County of Salt Lake City, and I wish to speak about the inland port. When I believe the port is a bad idea because I believe it will bring a level of pollution to this valley that will make it nearly unlivable and will significantly shorten the lifespan of tens of thousands of people. When the master business plan was created for the inland port, the author did a great deal of analysis of the traffic that currently exists, of the truck trips, train trips, et cetera, that are currently coming in. What he did not do was to identify what the additional trips with the built port would be. And that is, in theory, with the size of the warehouses being built, tens of thousands of truck trips, hundreds of thousands of car trips, numerous train trips, all daily. Now, what I would like to ask the city council for is that no modeling was ever done of what this additional traffic would do to our environment. There needs to be a modeling effort, traffic modeling done for the entire valley, showing what will happen, what will be the additional air pollution of CO2, ozone, and all the other contaminants that are being put into the air. I ask that the city council fund and plan and fund this modeling effort to get a traffic analysis. This is the basis for what would be a human health risk assessment to determine what the actual impact of the port is to the.
Now we have Emily Allworth, followed by Jim Webster, and then Cindy Crover. Emily, you are unmuted.
Hello. I would like to speak in opposition to honestly anything involving the inland port. I am deeply frustrated by how controversial of an issue this is and how it is continually pushed through. And people seem to be throwing up their hands and saying that it is not the responsibility of Salt Lake when it is, in fact, our West Side residents that are going to feel the most effects from this. And is going to continue to haunt Salt Lake City. The amount of traffic that we have in this city is already clearly an issue to the constituents. The amount of money that we are spending on creating safer streets is going to be nullified if all of our traffic is going to have to go through side streets because we are clogged up with semis coming through and polluting our air. The amount of air pollution we are experiencing this summer is unprecedented with the accumulation of fires and fireworks. However, the inversions that we have during the winter are going to continue to get worse as well, and this together is going to create a problem that is going to continue to make our children sicker. It is not just about the current generation in Salt Lake, it is about the next generation in Salt Lake. It is also about the people who don't have a choice to go inside with air conditioning during the day. I am constantly disappointed to see how safe areas that are supposed to be open to unsheltered people during these times are increasingly unwelcome. Areas like our public parks, like Allen Park, that are consistently policed and have armed guards walking around them, as well as our Salt Lake City Public Library, which is supposed to be a cool air zone, and yet police wander with guns, harassing unsheltered individuals who need to spend time outside of the heat and polluted airs. I'm constantly disappointed on how we are deprioritizing not only the health of the general population, but the health issues that are.
Now we have Jim Webster, followed by Cindy Cromer, and then George Chapman. Jim, you are unmuted.
Thank you. I applaud the concern for environmental damages and so forth with respect to the inland port, but I can assure you that it's citywide. Brad Barber with the state has initiated a program for mitigating the wildlife habitat. This is amplified as well by the federal government, Department of Interior, Fish and Wildlife Service, who are there to monitor infractions of the migratory bird law. Unfortunately, Trump gutted their enforcement capabilities. The fire people from the state, for instance, have looked at parks in the city and been appalled by the amount of debris and fire fuel that's there. Also, Unified Fire is in concern with that. But on the other side of the equation, you've got Salt Lake City that has consistently been cutting trees during nesting season in violation of the federal laws, and the purposeful accumulation of fire fuel in parks, which, by the way, emit carbon, is being ignored. I think it's really unfortunate that we can't get on board with the state and the federal government with respect to environmental protection and move forward as a community in a more positive way. Thank you.
Now we have Cindy Cromer and then George Chapman. Cindy, you are unmuted.
Thank you. I'll be back at the next opportunity with more comments on housing. But tonight I want to recognize your staff and the staff in the recorder's office for their stellar accomplishments over the past 16 months. When the public hearing and comments went so far off the rails last year that I stopped participating, your staff in the recorder's office came to the rescue and fixed the problem in a lapsed time of 2 weeks. When a developer said things in a work session that my neighbors and I knew were false, I could count on your staff to try to straighten things out. Unfortunately, other people don't know your staff as well as I do, and they thought that the misinformation was proceeding unabated. The seamless communication that has been the hallmark of the council staff members for decades continued. It was as if they were still in the city and county building instead of working remotely. We are almost back. I am reminded of Katie Lewis's remark, I believe it was at a planning commission hearing, when a developer whined about the shutdown. Katie said, Salt Lake City is open for business. Thanks to many city employees, especially your staff in the recorder's office, Salt Lake City has indeed been open for business. I look forward to being back in the city and county building with you in the future. Thank you very much.
And now we have George Chapman. George, you are unmuted.
And I assume you can hear me now, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. This city should add sign-on and retention bonuses to Budget Amendment 1 now, since the 23% of police were down, that's over 120, are not available. So the $6.8 million decrease in police general funding due to using ARPA funding should be used for retention and sign-on bonuses. Or why not use the $6.8 million for the East Side precinct, which obviously needs more than the $1.4 million you have already in the bank. Speaking of the bank, UTA has $355 million in the bank and can afford the $1 fare, a $1 transit fare, to significantly increase transit ridership and decrease valley pollution. But UTA needs to be pushed by you, Salt Lake City, to do it, including pushing Carlton Christensen. On another general item, the promised security around the homeless centers is not happening, and this city should be providing police canine officers to discourage homeless drug use in and around centers. Remember, criminal behavior impacts the homeless first. Drug use may have been 25% 10 years ago, but it's much higher now, and that attracts criminals. And the city does not encourage family cycling on sidewalks, especially downtown, and they should stop putting obstacles cycling on the sidewalks. And finally, Salt Lake City residents should not accept a tax increase for the inland port by the Mosquito Board. You, the council, and mayor should be complaining in public and not saying, thank you, Carlton and the Mosquito Board, for your work. Complain now in public. Thanks for listening.
Council members, we have nobody else here for general comments.
Thank you so much, Isaac, and thank you to everyone who commented tonight. I will echo. Sorry, my mind just went blank, but I will echo the comments that we do have the best staff and are working on making all of this happen so that people can access both remotely and in this hybrid model and hopefully in person soon. So thank you, staff, for all of the hard work in making today happen. And I know we're not done in fixing the kinks for the next hybrid model, but we certainly have made some progress and we couldn't have done it without our staff. So thank you to those who also commented regarding our staff and the work that they've done to make this happen. With that, we will move on to new business. We do have to look at a motion about meeting remotely without an anchor location. And we recognize that this seems weird since we are all here, but we're going to be ratifying the motion that there still is no anchor location. And if that changes next week, then that changes. But we do need to look at ratifying the determination that we're meeting remotely without an anchor location due to health and safety of the people who may be in attendance, and considering the continued closure of the city and county building to the public.
Madam Chair, I move that we ratify the chair's determination to continue meeting remotely without an anchor location due to the health and safety risk presented to the staff and to members of the public who may be present.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Ferris. Is there any discussion on this? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously with Councilmember Rogers being absent. Let's see, we have no unfinished business today, and so we are at section G, the consent portion of our agenda. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously with Councilmember Rogers being not here today. With that, everyone, thank you for your patience today. Thank you for your hard work, and we are adjourned.